motions this evening? Do we have any suspensions? I think we have one, don't we, Mayor?
What would that be, Mr. President?
The ordinance 20-30 that we got on the I'll get the initials messed up. OPWC grant.
You got it right.
Didn't that have to be suspended?
So actually, Mr. President, that grant, we had explained to council at the Long Community Planning meeting that we did not expect to have that legislation ready for tonight. And we are going to introduce it at the September 8th meeting and ask council pass it under suspension at that meeting. However, the city engineer's office, namely Matt Watson, put in about 25 hours late last week and got it done. So we were able to go ahead and have it introduced tonight instead of the 8th. Unless you see a reason to do otherwise, my recommendation would be to give it a first reading tonight and then pass it under suspension at the next meeting. That way it at least has 2 of its 3 normal readings. We got lucky. Well, not lucky. Matt, Matt works around the clock. He got the work done and surprised every one of us having it ready to go this evening.
Okay, good. Mr.
President?
Yes.
Yeah, resolution 20-29, it's not an emergency, but I think it's more than a ceremonial resolution, which means that you would read it at 3 separate meetings, and unless council would choose to suspend a 3 reading rule, which I believe that the various parties that are involved with the comprehensive plan would like to have the endorsement at tonight's meeting, but maybe the mayor knows more about that as to whether you need to take action this evening or you could read it a couple meetings and then take action.
I don't believe we're under any kind of deadline for it. The county commissioners discussed it at their last meeting. They plan to approve it. What is today? I believe it's Thursday. However, there's no great speed required to have it done. Just the sooner the better.
I thought I read where they had passed it. Maybe I'm wrong.
They may have last Thursday. I apologize if I missed that.
But you say there's no great urgency to get it passed this evening?
I don't think it hurts, Mr. President, but I guess I hate to see something that took 2 years of planning, even though we all appear to be on board with it. I think it's almost a disservice to the public to suspend and pass it on its first reading. I would like to see more opportunity for public input in case anyone is opposed to it. It's not likely, but we got to remember, we spent the last 2 years working on this document, and to just suspend it and pass it on its first reading, I don't know if I buy into the necessity of that and the emergency to it, I guess.
Okay, that sounds fair enough. Anyone else have a comment about that? Councilman Jones?
I agree with the mayor 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jones? You're muted. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I have several things to bring up. I don't know if now is the time or later in the regular meeting or whatever, but I don't want to miss out on anything.
Then I'll tell you.
Sir?
I said, what are they? Then I'll tell you.
Okay.
How's that?
One is Chris Heminger at Six's Corners about a parking issue.
Okay, that's probably a question for the administrators.
Item 2, Joe Snyder on 129 Douglas Street. is going to Zoom in tonight at 7 p.m. I just sat on his porch for 1 hour earlier this afternoon. I went out on a limb and told him that I did not read all of this dissertation. When I was at his house, he handed me a whole packet of documents about yay, I don't know how yay deep is, but pretty deep. And I said, Joe, let me interrupt you here. It sounds like you have a neighborhood dispute. This is nothing to do with city council. It's between you, the police department, and your lawyer. And he insisted it had something to do with city council. City council was supreme in the city of Tiffin. And I told him, I don't think city council is supreme in the city of Tiffin. I explained to him months ago, Mayor Mont sent me an email. I cannot go to direct to the department heads, tie up their time, asking them questions, asking or telling them to do this and that, this and that. I told him that the department heads report to Dale Thornton, city administrator reports to the mayor. Us city council people do not have any input onto this, and he didn't want to hear that. So he's going to chime in tonight sometime after 7 p.m. And I assured him, sitting on his front porch this afternoon, if Kathy Moore does not recognize him, I'm hoping that she will somehow draw him into the conversation. So that was Heminger, Joe Schneider, and it had to have been more than that. Maybe that's only just 2 items, so.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? There's also a change in the invocation and the pledge are going to be led by Councilman Gillig and not Councilman Schuff tonight. We got out of sequence there.
I noticed that, but I wasn't going to say anything.
All right, so fairly light legislative night. Anything else? Anything else on the committee of the whole? Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know no one likes surprises, so I thought I would mention it now, and I'm going to bring it up at the regular meeting. But Resolution 2030, authorizing the mayor to do this, and the mayor to do that, and the mayor to do this, and I keep seeing the mayor, and I got tired of seeing the mayor there. But we're talking about something on Hudson Street, Oak Street. I mean, hell, I can throw a baseball to Hudson and Oak Street, North Monroe Street, Franklin Street, Clyde Street, A Street, $375,000 and 33% is going to be paid by. This is my second ward. Shouldn't I have some advance notice of repaving, curbing, asphalt, whatever the heck it is? Wouldn't I have a insight to this before it gets thrown in my face, for lack of better terms? Resolution 20-30. I'm just think I should be a little more involved in the second ward instead of the mayor doing this and the mayor doing that and the mayor doing that. Someone help me out.
Okay, well, let me make a comment here. These are all improvements. If it moves ahead, these are all improvements that are going to be made in your ward. Now, are any of these improvements anything that you would not want to be involved with?
I want to be involved. Yes, they're all I want to be involved with, but I'm not involved. It's bring it up tonight. Let's vote on it. Let's pass the 3 reading rule. I said, North Monroe, Clyde Street, Franklin Street. Am I all wet here? You other 6 city council people sit back there, don't say a darn word, and I'm trying to make a change here, and y'all sit there like bobblehead dolls. So I'll mute myself.
Good idea. Anyone else have a comment? Are you raising your hand, Councilman Jones? Councilman Jones?
Yes, I am, Mr. President.
Okay.
Okay, I would appreciate a little more comment from yourself or the other 6 city council persons instead of saying, thank you and shut up. That was not my intention, to sit here idle and have this stuff thrown in my face, so.
Well, first of all, nobody's throwing anything in your face. Councilman Gillig?
Councilman Jones, I'm still kind of puzzled as to what you're upset about, to be honest.
Mr. President, thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm upset that this resolution 20-30 is being presented tonight. I know nothing about it, and it involves 6 or 7 streets in my neighborhood. And what I'm upset about is I'm thinking one of these people are going to call me and say, Councilman Jones, what is this on North Monroe Street? What is this on Franklin Street? And I said, call the mayor. He knows all about it. It just doesn't sit well with me. That's what I'm upset about.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Jones, this was discussed at last week's Law and Community Planning meeting, and the streets were just finalized to have on the list this morning when the law director got the ordinance put together for the packet. So we discussed it last week as part of the Law and Community Planning Committee meeting. I'm not sure if Councilwoman Boyle has her notes yet from the meeting. If so, you'll probably hear a little bit about it at that. But these are, I can't remember the dollar figure, I don't have it in front of me. These are hundreds of thousands of dollars of street paving monies that will be spent in your ward to improve streets. And I can't imagine why anyone would be upset that their street was getting paved next year by a grant that's covering the vast majority of the paving cost. So I guess I'm kind of confused here. We're not asking for suspension of it this evening. So I'm really confused where the anger comes from with the fact that it sounds to me almost like you're just upset that you didn't know so that you could have your name on the legislation to take credit for that in your ward versus the fact that it sounds a little upset that the mayor's name's on there when indeed I'm the one that has to sign the paperwork.
I'd also like to add that we have a city engineer whose job is to go out and find the streets that are in most disrepair. He has a list that he puts together. All this is we're looking at the potential to go after grant money to reinforce the money that the city is able to bring to the table. So we're just talking about something in the future. Again, the city engineer is the one that has a responsibility for going through the streets and telling us which streets need to be prioritized. And he's done that in your ward. That's not anything I would have any idea about which streets need to be repaved over other ones. So that's his job. He's prioritized it. Okay, we got 1 minute. Make it quick. Councilman Jones.
I'll wait to hear Councilwoman Boyle's report then. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else? Anything else? Okay, I'm going to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting, and we'll get ready for the regular council meeting here. Ben, did you hear you're going to be doing the invocation?
Yes,
Pledge?
Mr. President.
Thank you. We're just about out of time here, Mr. Jones. Gonna wait. All right. I'd like to call the August 17th, 2020 meeting of Tiffin City Council to order. This evening will be led, the invocation will be led by Councilman Gillig, and who will also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would you please join me in the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United
of the
States of America
States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Gilly. Clerk Ann Forrest will now call the roll, please.
Councilman Gillig,
Here.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Here.
Councilman Jones,
Present.
Councilman Leopard,
Here.
Councilman Perry,
Here.
Councilman Schuff,
here.
Councilwoman Boyle.
Here.
Let the record show that all 7 members of Tiffin City Council were present. Did everyone receive and have an opportunity to read through the minutes of August 3rd, 2020? Are there any, Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to give Clerk of Courts Ann Forrest a pat in the back. I had a edit to the minutes, but she had edited that before I even brought it up. So I think she does a fine job in the minutes, but I have no changes at this point.
Thank you. Councilman Schuff? No? Okay.
I didn't have my hand raised. That was Councilman Leopard, I think you're looking at.
Oh, sorry, Councilman Leopard?
Thank you, Mr. President. Page 3489, under the heading Public Hearing Notice, line 4, the name should be Doug, not Dan.
Any other
Thank you,
corrections?
Councilman. Yeah, I'll correct that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other corrections, additions, deletions? Seeing none, the minutes will be approved as presented with the one minor change. Thank you. We'll move on now to committee reports. Finance Committee, Councilman Gillig.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Law and Community Planning, Councilwoman Boyle.
Yeah, Mr. President, I apologize. I don't have my report completed just yet. I'm almost finished with it, so it'll be prepared prior to the next meeting. And I'll send that out to all of you via email. But I will state that there was a long community planning meeting that took place on August 12th. So that was last Wednesday. So again, I will get that report out to you as soon as possible.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilwoman Boyle? Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I understood someone, and I guess I don't pay that close attention, that Law and Community Planning had a meeting and they talked about this street paving, and I would like a verbal update from Councilwoman Boyle if that did come up in the meeting.
Yeah, so Councilman Jones, we talked about it in the meeting. It was an added agenda item by the mayor. So it wasn't planned to be discussed. I think as mayor has already stated that it was added during the meeting by him and the city engineer. So that might have been why weren't aware of it, but it was discussed and you'll see the notes in my minutes.
Councilman Jones, something else?
I'm sorry, Mr. President, that was a thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, materials and equipment, Councilman Jones.
No report at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilman Perry.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Recreation and Public Property, Councilwoman Yanatuno.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Street Sidewalks and Sewers, Councilman Leopard.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Economic Development and Downtown Planning, Councilman Schuff.
No report this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Does anyone see a need for a committee of the whole meeting? Okay. We'll now move on to reports of the officers. His Honor Mayor Aaron D. Muntz.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. The big item that we continue to update everyone on council about is the financial state of the city due to the coronavirus pandemic that is ongoing. If you had a chance to check your emails today before the meeting, you would have seen the latest numbers through August the 14th that we have. Very nice month of August so far. We are continuing to trend up after having really a roller coaster ride to the start of this year. As I've mentioned a few times now, we had near record collections for the first quarter of the year for January, February, and March. And then the bottom fell out with the shutdown of the state of Ohio, where we were down 30% for the month of April, 29% for the month of May, and 22% for the month of June. So far in August, we're continuing to see a healthy increase in revenue. As of now, we are up 101% this month, which is obviously very welcome news. We do not anticipate by the end of the month that it will be that high. We always see a spike towards the middle with the collection deadline. But right now we're up about $280,000 when you compare August 14th, 2020 to August 14th, 2019. The 15th of each month is the deadline for businesses to send in their estimates. So we expect to have a better picture probably a little later this week. We're still awaiting the July unemployment numbers for Seneca County. We know those numbers have dropped from where they were in June at 10%. So things are continuing to improve. Since the shutdown, we are now down 6.9%, which is just under $300,000 of revenue. So we're continuing to turn around. It's a very good sign. I know a lot of the announcements that we've got out recently about whether it's the manufacturing sector ramping up hiring and returning to work, or whether it's a lot of the new mentions with the retail and commercial side of things, we've been seeing the business climate overall improve here. And I think that's why we need to continue to echo that we can't afford another shutdown again, because we're finally digging out of the first one. Congress, of course, has adjourned without an agreement for any relief to municipalities at this time. So we're basically hanging on, waiting to see if there is any kind of relief that comes our way. If not, at least we have an exact handle on where we are financially every single day. So with that, we discussed at this morning's department head meeting that we are going to begin the budgetary process very soon. There's going to be a lot more assumptions this year, probably than ever, when it relates to our budget. I told the department heads that I would recommend that they submit 2 different proposals to me, one of which would be their ideal staffing if we had not had the coronavirus pandemic, and the other would be a budget that would more reflect the current financial state of the city with the reduced revenues that we've experienced due to coronavirus. The reason for that, it would allow us to pivot quite quickly if we were to receive any federal funding or additional funding from the state to help us make up for those revenue losses that we've experienced. It would allow us to pivot quickly and get the best budget possible to city council so that we had the right fit going into the start of 2021. And that we were not flooding city council with all sorts of budget amendments early in the year and that sort of thing. So we're doing our part to stay ahead of it and get very creative with the ways that we're formulating our budgets as we head into the fall season. Just a lot of unknowns right now. We hope and pray there's no additional shutdowns. We also hope that some funding does trickle down from the state or federal government. So there's just so many what ifs out there. We figure that we should have a few different versions of our budget so that we're able, like I said, to pivot very quickly and introduce the best fit budget for city council when you all get that in November of this year. It's been very busy here on our side. Lots of good news though in the community to share with you. 3 different projects in our downtown were funded the max award amount from Heritage Ohio for grants. for facade work. They were the Tiffin Boutique Hotel. They're going to get the exterior of that structure tuck pointed with their grant. The American Legion, located in downtown, put a new roof on the building. And then 195, 197 South Washington Street also put a new roof on the building. New roofs, tuck pointing are not exciting items. They're not the type of thing that the public sees happening and it draws any sort of excitement in, but they are some of the most important things that can be done to these old historic buildings in our downtown to ensure that those building envelopes are sealed up and that we're not seeing water intrusion that can really cause long-term damage. So I'm very happy to see this grant money from the state of Ohio used to help fix these buildings up, get those building envelopes sealed so that we're able to preserve our historic heritage here in downtown Tiffin. I want to congratulate Zach Arnold and Arnold Machine for their acquisition of FMI. With that acquisition, they're going to add 13 more employees here at their Tiffin facility. Zach Arnold's story is really exciting. The fact that he was a graduate here of our own Sentinel, started up his own machine shop out of his garage practically, and now he's got this wonderful factory here in Tiffin that has seen a couple of expansions. This latest one adding an additional 13 employees. He's just one of those great Tiffin success stories of someone who started their own business and now is leading one of our top manufacturers in the community. So congratulations to Zach, and great news for the community. Another store located in downtown Tiffin is Kessler & Company. Yet another young professional, much like Zach Arnold, starting her own business here in downtown Tiffin. It's exciting because it seems like week after week we're seeing young professionals either return to Tiffin or expand their businesses here and the community to continue to grow. This will be yet another clothing store in downtown Tiffin. Very exciting to see this come. The plan is for it to open in late August, and we'll continue to keep you updated if we're able to have any kind of a ribbon cutting with the ongoing pandemic issues. Speaking of downtown, it was very exciting to see Bear and Bear's Den announce their $40,000 outdoor entertainment and patio area that they're installing. That work has gotten underway and going hot and heavy on Perry Street. It's great because we've long said that we need additional options for outdoor dining and just hanging out, especially in our downtown area here in Tiffin. And it's great to see Bear do this. And I know I've joked around. I really hope that Bear, if any of you remember, bring back the old Bear Burger that he used to do down there at the Bear's Den that everyone was a big fan of. But great to see that project moving forward and nearing completion. Just late last week, Happy Days has opened their new nutrition drink and smoothie bar located on East Market Street. Another 2 young professionals opening that business up. Very exciting. Congratulations to them. And then on our end with the city, Ellis Street was completed and opened as promised on Friday. That was the completion of the Ellis Street Bridge. The work is about 99% of the way done. The one item that remains yet is the decorative light poles that are going on the bridge. If you notice, the bridge looks just like a miniature version of our downtown bridges. So with that, it's getting the decorative lamp post on them. I think it's going to look really good going into the Tiffin City Schools campus down there. I'm hopeful in the future, once the main Ellis Street Bridge is completed, I'd love to see Tiffin City Schools hanging their banners on the bridge, much like what we do with our downtown lamppost, with our downtown banners. It'd be really neat as you drive into the Tiffin City Schools campus area to have that bridge lit up with the lights and the banners. So great there. That bridge, as you recall, was paid for. About 80% of the final cost of that was paid for out of grant funds. Speaking of other projects for the community, the Jefferson Street streetscape, the state was awarded that grant of about $300,000 from the state of Ohio. That work will kick off on or around August the 24th. Because of that, the remainder of the farmers markets for this year will be moved back to the South Washington Street location between Market Street and Perry Street. That starts with this coming Saturday's farmers market. That Jefferson Street project should be most of the way completed by this winter. We're unsure if they will get the decorative lamp posts installed yet this year. If not, those will be put in next spring. But all of the concrete and roadway work will be completed late this fall, early winter. I would like to welcome Nick Moses to the city team. Nick is our new assistant arborist at Public Works. He brings a long-standing career in the private sector of tree trimming and tree maintenance to our team. He's going to be able to step right into that role at Public Works and immediately serve as that assistant in the assistant arborist role. So it's great because I know this spring we got a little behind with tree removals due to the resignation of the assistant arborist. Now that Nick has started with the team, we'll be able to get those caught up before fall arrives. And I just wanted to thank also Chief Stevens for the very good explanation he put out late last week. You probably had seen that the city acquired 2 Ford F-150 pickup trucks this year instead of purchasing police cruisers or the SUVs. The chief put out a wonderful statement explaining that they were no more expensive than the Ford Explorers, and the Dodge Chargers were actually unavailable right now because they're going through a redesign. Just like cars that individuals purchase every few years, they redesign our safety service vehicles, and therefore they were unavailable. The Ford Interceptors were also unavailable, so we went with a couple of F-150s for various reasons, as laid out by the chief, all of the snow that we get in the wintertime, also the fact that we've got a lot of equipment that we have to tow from time to time. We in no way will be replacing our entire fleet with Ford F-150s, but we do anticipate having anywhere from 3 to 4 of them on hand going forward into the future, just to really maximize the efficiency of our police department fleet. Just a couple of other items. Street paving is still going strong in the community. Because of the road and bridge levy passing, we're looking at still 3 to 4 more weeks before that entire project is completed this year. So they're not even quite halfway through their paving list. Matt Watson let me know last week, and he talked about it at Long Community Planning meeting, but because of the road and bridge levy passing, we've been able to take what we anticipate to be about $6 million from that levy money, and we've already been able to obtain over $4 million in grants, meaning that by the time that road and bridge levy runs the first cycle through of 5 years, we will be able to inject over $10 million into city streets and bridges here in the Tiffin community by leveraging that $6 million that the voters approved for the road and bridge levy. So it's being money well spent to catch up with a lot of the streets that have fallen behind for repairs, and also the bridges in the city. With that, I see we have Kevin Hughes on here. Kevin, for those of you, I think all of you know, but for the public, Kevin Hughes is our Water Pollution Control Center superintendent. So he runs the sewer plant out on North Water Street. So with that, I am going to turn things over to Kevin, and he is going to give an update. If you all recall, we have a project that is nearly $14 million to overhaul and upgrade the sewer department and the sewer plant. So Kevin, why don't you go ahead and share with council how the project's moving along?
All right, thank you. So like Aaron said, the project the bid came in at 11.67 million, and Peterson Construction was the company that was awarded the bid. And I have a PowerPoint presentation. I think I can do the screen share to kind of share with you guys. But I'll kind of go through a little bit of the work that's being done out at the plant. So in the main building, we're going to be replacing 3 of the 4 raw pumps, and the VFDs that go along with those raw pumps. The SCADA system, which is the operating system for the plant, it'll allow us to remotely monitor the plant, which we don't have that capability right now. They are building a new, I'll kind of go through some of the gist of a lot of electrical work, adding a new blower, one that's a lot more efficient and smaller than the one that we run on a normal basis, adding an anaerobic tank, which is going to help us cut back in our chemical usage. We're also switching from chlorine to ultraviolet disinfection. So we'll be getting rid of chlorine completely. Doing a lot of electrical upgrades, including a new 480 panel into the main building. 2 new transformers, all underground cables from here on out. Also, we're going to have fiber optic controlling a lot of the equipment after this is all done. A couple of the primary tanks that are original from the 50s when the plant was built, those are being gutted and the equipment inside of them is being replaced to something that works a lot better. A little bit of background on this too. I know all of you know about the long-term control plan and the city having to do the sewer separation project. Part of that sewer separation project is eliminating all but 4 of our CSO discharges, which are the combined sewer overflows, for a year. We're only going to be allowed to have 4. So part of that is we're going to need to upgrade the plant to hold a lot more, treat a lot more water, especially when we get a rainfall. So we're going from being able to treat 4 million on a long-term basis to 13 million gallons a day after the project is done. But I'm going to try to share the screen and pull that presentation up. So. All right, I'm hoping everybody can see it. So.
Yeah, we can see it, Kevin.
Okay, so this is a picture of the plant before any of the construction has started. This is pretty much how the plant has looked since 1968. There are a couple small additions in here, like this building was added in 88, which is where the chlorine is housed, but other than that, the plant was pretty much the same. We did have a 2015 upgrade, but it just replaced some of the existing equipment. The project did get started on March 3rd. This is kind of when the first day when they were out there breaking ground. This is the UV building that they're putting in on the northeast corner of the plant. They did hit bedrock about 10 feet down and had to jackhammer quite a bit out there when they were putting in some of the newer tanks and a few of the buildings. This is inside the UV building. This is a more current picture. This was taken last week. They're projected to be done next May. This is a picture where the secondary clarifier. Right now, we have 2 primary clarifiers and 3 secondary clarifiers, and they're adding a secondary clarifier that is twice as big as any of our other secondary clarifiers. And this is the secondary clarifier where the hole I was just showing you. That's it right now. So the back half of this plant where the clarifier, the UV, and a lot of the electricals is going to be put online in December of this year. There's 4 electrical buildings that they're adding on. This is the new generator that we're replacing, our old one. It's going to be a remote generator, so if we did lose power in the night, this will automatically switch over, where right now if we lose power, we have to go in and do a manual, and we can only run about half of the plant on the generator that we currently have. And this is an aerial picture from June showing some of the progress. This is the UV building out here, the secondary clarifier. I have a couple other aerial pictures that right here is the anaerobic tank, which will allow biological phosphorus removal. That'll, like I was saying earlier, it'll allow us to cut back on the ferrous chloride that we use. Right now we use 3 chemicals: the ferrous chloride, which helps in settling and remove phosphorus from the water, and we have chlorine, and then sodium thiosulfate, which we use to take the chlorine out of the water before it discharges back to the river. So once this project is done and we go to UV, we'll be eliminating chlorine and sodium thiosulfate. This is a more current. This picture was taken the beginning of last week. an aerial photo, you can kind of see the progress that they're making. And honestly, even today, they already have this building bricked in and part of this building. Well, this building's completely blocked up. So they're moving along really fast. And this is on the left, obviously, is the plant before this project. And then on the right is the project, almost current, I guess. But one other thing that the AECOM kind of came up with is right now we have pumps on our aeration tanks that lift the water back up after the primary clarifiers. And they came up with the idea of raising all the walls on the primary clarifiers in our primary splitter box, which allows us to eliminate all of the pumps on the aeration tank. So because we were going to have to replace all those pumps there are 4 of them and they're very old. But because we can now just gravity flow from the primaries over to the aeration, and then it's gravity all the rest of the way through the plant also. So that was kind of a nice thing that they came up with. So, but I would definitely invite all of you to come out at some point to tour the plant. You can come out at any time. I know Dale and I talked about maybe once the project is completed to have everyone out, but if anyone has any questions along the way, they're more than welcome to come out anytime and take a tour and kind of see how everything's moving along and how it's progressing. Because of the bid coming in so low, we were able to we had 8 alternates jobs that we wanted to have done, and we were able to get all of the ones that we wanted done within this project. So that was kind of a bonus on, with the low bid that Peterson Construction had. A couple other things. There's going to be a new outfall where the water discharges from the plant to the river. I think those were pretty much the main highlights of everything that is going to be added in. I don't know if there's any questions or.
Anyone have any questions for Kevin? I have I'm interested in this ultraviolet light. That's how long's that been around, Kevin?
It's been around for a while, but honestly, about 12 years. I've been at the wastewater plant for 16 years, and I know some people that did have it then. And I actually started in the lab, so I kind of was interested in it also, just as far as like for E. coli's to eliminate those. And a lot of the plants that had it, they did have a lot of trouble with it, because if they had a lot of solids in their water, their effluent, the UV lights they weren't strong enough to kill all the E. coli. But I guess it's come a long way over the last 15 years to where it's just a lot more efficient. It's a lot more powerful, and everyone I know that has it loves it. Like they haven't had any issues with their E. coli numbers as far as meeting their parameters put out by the EPA. So we looked into a few different types and toured a couple plants that had it once we decided kind of on the ones that we liked the most or that sounded the best. And we haven't heard any negative feedback from anyone that has it. So we're excited, honestly, because that's a big thing for the city too. The firemen won't have to worry about the chlorine, and we've had some leaks over the years, and it's one less thing to worry about, I guess.
Well, I would definitely like to go through the plant. I have a little history there, since my dad's company did quite a bit of work there over the years. I also want to congratulate you, because I do not believe that the general public has any idea about how scientific the treatment of sewage really is. I mean, this is probably the most complicated thing that the city is involved in, And it takes a lot of science and a lot of engineering and a lot of expertise to get it done. So congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to add that at council's last meeting, council approved an easement for Ohio Power to provide some underground and above ground lines and a pad mount transformer. And to let council know that the easement was prepared, reviewed, and signed by the mayor, and then returned to AEP for recording. So the project was not slowed down by any means by our action. So we were able to get it back. And Kevin may be able to provide a little more of the location of where the electric facilities are located. He talked about them in the upgrade, but the actual access point, I believe, was from the north. Correct, Kevin?
Yeah, if you would come in the north gate, it's going to be right along the east side of the driveway. And that's, right now the city owns the electrical equipment inside the fence. And after this is all done, AEP will own the lines coming in and the transformers. So, which will be nice because we won't have to do any repairs to them if something would happen, right? Which right now we do. If something happens to the transformers or the telephone poles, the city has to repair them, but the poles are going away.
Thanks, Kevin. Anyone else have any?
If I can, Mr. President.
Yeah, City Administrator.
Just to clarify a couple issues, if people had some questions, the mayor talked about a $14 million project, and Kevin talked about $11 million for the construction company, and they're both correct. Peterson Construction out of Wapakoneta, Ohio, who won the award, is going to receive about $11,678,000 in their construction for this project, they and their subcontractors. There's also about $896,000 that was paid in design fees, and another $554,000 being paid in engineering services to AECom for overseeing the project. And then there's a contingency of about $1,168,000. So all told, the loan is, the 30-year loan is for $14,296,022.13. We will begin repaying that loan in 2024, in January of 2024. It is a 0% loan over 30 years, so we will not be paying any interest on that loan, which is a wonderful thing for the city and for the residents, that we do not have to pay any interest on that. The other issue, or the other topic I might talk about just for a minute, is that Kevin talked about the project being completed in May of next year, or May of 21. We will do the punch list in June of 21, have substantial completion in September 21, and begin operating the plant in December of 21. So just some other dates to flesh out the project a little more in everyone's mind.
Kevin, how much is this going to change our capacity?
From 4 million gallons a day to 13 million gallons a day.
13. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge increase.
Oh, yeah. Well, right now we can take, we have a storm tank that's on the east side of the property that you can't really see in that picture. But so right now, if we have a big rainfall, we can take maybe an additional 10 million through that storm tank, but it only receives primary treatment. And then we could still take 4 million through the back half of the plant that gets the full treatment. But with this project and with the long-term control plan, we have to eliminate that bypass. So we'll be able to take 13 million, and then everything else would be, if there was any more in a rain event, would be going out through the CSOs. But there is a phase 2 of this project where they want to add an EQ basin where the dog kennel used to be, which will hopefully catch the additional rainfall that the plant wouldn't be able to treat and take through. And then once, you know, the flow slows down, we could take that flow that was in the EQ basin.
Well, the other thing, if I, safe to say that when the plant's complete, the effluent will be cleaner than it is now.
It's pretty clean now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I don't, it should be
But if you have
cleaner, yeah, because
stormwater, if you have a stormwater event, that stormwater is going to be cleaner before it goes into the river, correct?
correct. Yes, that's true
Yeah,
for sure.
okay.
Yep.
Right. Anything else for Kevin? Well, thank you, Kevin. It's very interesting. I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to the visit.
All right. Yeah, anytime.
Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin, for the presentation. It was very informative. I know we need to get council out there to take a tour, but you guys have just continued to do an amazing job. And as part of this program, getting the wastewater plant expanded is going to allow us to continue to grow. We're seeing our borders expand with new annexations, all of these new businesses opening. So of course that is an increase to the amount of sewage that goes into the sewer plant. So it's just good to see that our capacity will be greatly expanded in the event that the community continues to grow. But this also gets us on that step towards satisfying the EPA mandates of limiting our stormwater overflows to a very minimal number per year within the timeline. So council's been very supportive of the program overall. And it's great to achieve a zero interest loan, as Administrator Thornton pointed out. It's going to be huge so that we're not strapping future generations with debt and interest rate money to pay back. It's very good overall for the community. But when we have folks that question why the sewer rates go up each year, you know, that project alone is one of the big reasons for it. We all know that we have $80 to $100 million worth of sewer work to complete in the next 23 years. Well, that project alone, when it's all said and done, as Administrator Thornton and Kevin Hughes pointed out, is going to be about $14 million of that 80 to 100 million that we have to spend over the next 23 years. So must get it done. The EPA mandates and sets their own schedule, and we have to comply in order to protect the Sandusky River and ultimately Lake Erie. So thank you for the presentation, Kevin. If there are no more,
Thank you. I just wanted to say one thing real quick. I know 14 million sounds like a lot, but if you look around at other cities, just in Upper Sandusky, Fremont, you know, they're spending 80 to 100 million on a new plant, and their plants weren't even as old as Tiffin's. So I mean, obviously that says a lot for not just the current staff, but the previous staff that the wastewater plants had, as far as keeping it up and keeping everything maintained. And I think, you know, since I've been there, we've always had a good preventative maintenance program and really good guys out there. So I just wanted to throw that out there just because it's a lot of money, but it could be a lot worse. You could add 80 million onto the long-term control plan project and it would look a lot worse. And I'm sure Fremont and Upper's rates and, you know, those places are a lot higher than Tiffin's are going to be if they're not now. But that's it.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions before we let Kevin go for the evening?
Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would love to take a tour of the wastewater pretreatment plant, but is that one of the city buildings that is closed or is that open for business?
So all of our buildings are open by appointment, but I think what is best in order to maximize our time would be to schedule a time for all of council to go through, and we would go ahead and invite the media as well. I guess we could set up one-on-one tours, but I'd like to maximize the employees' time out there and not have them go break away for 7, 8, 9 separate meetings So maybe we will look in the future when this project's a little closer to fruition. And also when it's not quite as hot, because the hotter it gets, the more it stinks. So it may be a little better to go this fall when the project's nearing completion and the temperatures aren't quite as hot. We could set up a time for you all to come out and take a tour, and we'd love to have the AT and anyone else come along so that they could take some notes and see what's going on.
I might add, from a
Thank
safety
you.
standpoint, with the construction work that's going on out there right now, it's not the ideal environment to have tours or guests going through the plant. Once they get closer to the completion of that project next May, would be an ideal time to get all of council to come out and take a tour of the facility when you can see it in a almost complete state.
Councilman Shuff?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, who was the loan through? Was it through the EPA?
It's through the WPCLF. So it was extended to us through the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate the presentation. Have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
One last agenda item this evening. You've probably seen David Zach pop up on your screens. He's here, obviously representing the Tiffin Seneca Economic Partnership, TSEP. There has been a committee for about the last 2.5 to 3 months that has been working on policy development internal to TSEP, but also with some recommendations to the city on how we handle large-scale mega projects in the future and some other items. So I did forward an email to all of you. You're welcome to bring that up. It was an email from David, kind of outlining what he's discussing this evening. So you're welcome to bring it up during this meeting and look that over. But I'm going to turn things over to David Zach and his TSEP team now to go over these items with you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor. Kathy, if you could let Audrey Flood on as well. She's going to join me for the second part. So thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Council President Fote, members of council. It's good to be here, always is, to talk briefly. I always remember Councilman Roberts, may he rest in peace, comments about my epic presentation style, so I'm going to try to keep his spirit laughing by not doing that. So at the request of Mayor Montz and Council President Fote and Councilmember Boyle, who's on our Board of Trustees, I'm going to talk about some of the important recommendations of our Policy Development Committee, which we call the PDC, and some of the recommendations that were unanimously approved by the committee and also by our executive committee within the last couple of weeks. And we expect that the executive committee's approval is going to be affirmed by our full board on August 26th. And then we're going to dive into the Tiffin Community Development Committee and our new project identification and prioritization process, or PIP, which was approved by the Tiffin Community Development Committee on July 22nd. So let me begin with the PDC, Policy Development Committee. So the committee was created in January of this year by our executive committee to do a couple things, to basically, how can we improve how we, as your economic and downtown development agent, facilitate larger private downtown development projects on city-owned property. The members of this committee included Andrew Kalnow, who chaired the committee, Dean Keller, who chairs the Tiffin Seneca Economic Partnership, University Presidents Rob Huntington and Will Schumacher, John Arnold, as well as Dan Reinecke, our own Mayor Aaron Montz, and Commissioner Mike Kirshner. So quite an august group. And the thinking was, hey, we can always get better. We can always improve. That was kind of number one. Number two, there was a desire to minimize controversy. Not disagreement. We're never going to avoid disagreement, but long, public, heated disagreement that can tear away at community fabric. If we can avoid that, put things in place to minimize the chance of that happening, that would be a good thing. And third, there was we were thinking and wondering, with all the tremendous strides that we've seen in the downtown in recent years, like 50 new businesses and the great 100 existing downtown businesses that we have, the $31 million in new investment and amazing new projects like the Seneca County Justice Center in East Green, given the new lofts and apartments that have been developed, and our state and national Main Street accreditation and statewide awards. Should the way we work with developers also evolve? Can it get an upgrade given all of the progress that we've had. So the committee spent, I can tell you, I think the mayor can attest to this, spent collectively hundreds of hours over the course of 6 months to examine these questions. And what we did was not just kind of sit in a group and do internal groupthink, but it was talk to successful downtowns around Ohio. So we talked to folks involved in Troy, Lakewood, Findlay, Hamilton, Medina, Worcester, Middletown, Piqua, and Delaware, Ohio. We heard their stories, how they approach downtown revitalization and downtown development projects. We heard about their successes and their challenges, about their priorities and their controversies. And we said, hey, give us your advice, share with us lessons that you've learned as you've continued to grow and be successful. And so we processed all that. We wrote out more than 100 pages of transcripts, which if anybody wants a copy of those, happy to share those with you. And had really robust discussion about what the key takeaways were. After all of that work and deliberation and discussion by the committee agreed on the 5 key conclusions that's in the document that the mayor sent to you. And they are the following. Number 1, hey, we're doing a great job in our downtown, but you know what? We want to improve. We want to get better. And I think that's part of Tiffin's and Seneca County's charm and drive to always get better. Number 2, we know and we expect there's going to be disagreements, but we want to avoid controversy and the negative impacts of that if possible. So what can we do about that? Number 3, we need to make sure that we focus on what Craig Gossman calls the mechanisms of downtown development. These are the plans, the regulations, the processes, and the different roles that organizations and individuals play in downtown development. We need to educate people and stakeholders and people involved in the process more. And we need to keep them updated. And how do we do that? How do we get that funded, et cetera? That was a big third conclusion. Number 4, we need to adopt what the committee ended up calling the Gossman Guidelines. So National Downtown Expert Craig Gossman sits on the State Main Street Board, wrote both our Downtown Strategic Plan and our Downtown Development Plan. He also has done development himself and works with communities in putting together requests for a proposal and other things. Had some key elements that every single person on the committee absolutely agreed would be right for Tiffin at this time. That includes putting a formal request for qualifications and request for proposal process in place that council could use and the administration could use when it deems it has a public city-owned piece of property to which it wants to attract big transformative development. And last, but certainly not least, number 5, we need to strengthen, leverage, and protect the key assets that people from the outside, when they're looking at downtown Tiffin, say, wow, I wish I had those. And they are our universities, our great historic building stock, and our alleys, which is, there are communities that don't have the alleys. And they're like, someone literally in the community said, I would kill my fellow colleague here if I could have your alleys, which I think was hyperbole, but a dramatic way of saying we have a treasure. And I think what we've seen with Cherry Alley and what city's done is amazing. So those were the 5 key conclusions. Doing great, want to improve. Let's avoid controversy. Let's focus on the mechanisms of downtown development. Let's adopt Craig's reasonable, rational guidelines to more sophisticated communities. And number 5, let's strengthen our assets. So what I did is I took all this, and the members wrote several recommendations, including the mayor, on things that could be done. So I took all that, and like Willy Wonka's gobstopper machine, I came out with an action plan of 11 specific things that we could do in order of priority based on what the members of the committee said was important and how many members said it was important that we should do. So these recommendations were submitted, they were revised, they were discussed, and then eventually adopted by the Policy Development Committee. They are in order of priority from the view of the committee. Number 1, develop a city request for a proposal process for these large city-owned property, downtown development projects that you're trying to attract. 2, strengthen the exit strategy, which the city's already done a great job. Are there ways to tweak that? 3, develop a local investors in downtown forum where quarterly city, county representatives, us, and have a chance to talk about how things are going. How can we improve if there are any big issues that they have a place to kind of chat. Number 4, develop a downtown organization committee. So this is City Administrator Dale Thornton and I talk about, he's good as well as the mayor, making sure we don't get too many committees. But this is one where how do we make sure we're educating folks on how the design review process works, what's in our downtown plans, et cetera. And we think we need a group of folks to help figure out how we're going to do a better job of that. Number 5, that the community should establish, and specifically university support committees. If they're a huge asset, how do we allow them, give them a place where we will show up if they wish, each one individually, to support them and listen to what their concerns are on maybe a quarterly basis or every other month basis. Number 6, let's update our downtown mechanisms. That's everything from the zoning code to the plans, to the different kinds of things that we do, make sure they're updated and come up with a schedule. Number 7, improve more alleys, of course, as funding becomes available. 8, also as funding becomes available, continue the facade enhancement program. 9, establish internally a transformative project review process. 10, revamp the downtown development guide, make it easier, make it a little more user-friendly. And 10, develop an annual process to develop a downtown business attraction hit list. So these are 11 recommendations. I'm going to make a couple comments about them and then kind of open it up for feedback and questions. The first is that, recommendations 3, 4, 9, and 10 and 11 are things that we at the Tiffin City Economic Partnership are going to do internally, like establish a local investors in downtown forum. That's something we're going to put together that, is, and recommendation 5, which is the university support committees, we're recommending to the university that they do that. And that's certainly their choice to put those together. But I think we're saying we would be willing to be there and try to make sure that we're listening. Recommendations 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8 are kind of city specific, but it's really important to note, and we've had some discussion already with the administration on this, to make clear that these are recommendations. We don't perceive that we have any authority to say the city, you shall do anything, but we're just saying, just like we have with DORA, just like we're working on food truck policy, we are a body that makes recommendations to the administration, recommendations to the city council. Oftentimes that's adapted and done with what is in the best interest of the city, because we don't see all operational details. So that's really important to note with those. 3 of those, recommendations 6, 7, and 8, are, updating the mechanisms, upgrading the alleys, and continuing the facade program are things that the city has already demonstrated a strong willingness and commitment to invest money in, but the administration and city council done an amazing job. And so it's just kind of a confirmation, please continue down that course. The last comment that I'm going to make is that the most important recommendation in this document, it's number 1, is developing a city request for proposal process for any property like parking lots, city owns it, that it may in the future want to consider trying to attract some kind of wonderful development to. Our intention is to develop a process now so that in the future, were the city to decide that it wants to make this available for development, that we would have a formal process, a tool in the toolkit that the city could use. And it would be at your disposal. And you would decide, first of all, we want to come up with a draft. We want to work with Craig Gossman, national expert. Everyone kind of agrees. Help us develop this process. And what does that look like? A draft process. Work with the city to say, make it a good process. And once that's done, it's then ready to go before we have a development, so that everybody kind of agrees. Again, more formal, a little more collaborative, a little more, I would say, involved. Will take a little bit longer, but we're committed to get it as expedient as possible. But again, nothing the city has to do, either the administration or city council. We're just going to put together a draft idea together, what a proposal should look like, have some conversations so that it's ready to go off the shelf in the event the city wants to do that. So that's kind of, in summary, I think the work that we've done is very important. I think benchmarking communities of excellence and adapting to the best extent possible best practices makes sense. And I think it's, even though it's very time, and as the mayor will attest to, very time and labor intensive, it's worth it. And again, if anybody wants the longer transcripts, I'm happy to send those to you. And I'm happy to receive any questions or feedback now on what we're kind of thinking.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for David? Law Director.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add to David's comment about the process and as a tool for City Council. I want to remind Council that the charter, which of course was approved by the voters, gives Council the exclusive right to approve the sale of property. And we're talking about property that would be owned by the city in this process. So you have that exclusive right and authority granted to you by the voters. The process that David and the committee they've developed may be a best practice, or at least a better practice, and a tool that you could use at times, but you can also set it aside and not use it, depending on the circumstances of what you think as elected officials is in the best interest of the city, utilizing the authority granted under the charter. I would be careful not to delegate that kind of authority because it's special, as I said, laid out in the charter. So just be cautious about that. But this may very well be a useful tool for you in identifying projects for the community. Any questions about my legal issue that I wanted to raise to council?
Mayor?
It's not necessarily a question. It's just further agreeing with what Brent is saying and making sure that council does understand that what TCEP and the Policy Development Committee have come up with is essentially a roadmap to allow us now and in the future to take off the shelf when we determine there is a large transformational community changing project on a publicly owned tract of land. And then at that time for us to decide if we would like to implement the roadmap, which portions of it we would like to use. But out of the document, David will confirm there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into it, a lot of hard work. And we think we have a document that is very usable to help us avoid too much controversy in the community and allow for proper vetting of major community changing projects.
Congratulations, David. I like this. There's a couple of things here. First of all, it's a plan that gets us organized and gets everybody moving in the right direction. And secondly, it creates some processes for us to look at how we move ahead with approving projects and in handling different problems that have cropped up from time to time. So I think this is a wonderful step to continue improvement in our community. So thanks. Anyone else? Is Audrey next?
So yeah, let me kick it off. So with the Act 2, so to speak, also really important work. I think equally so. Audrey, who, as you all know, is our development manager in charge of community development for the city, is going to update on the Tiffin Community Development Committee. And then following that, I'm going to dive into the specifics of our new project identification and prioritization process, PIPP or PIP. So with that, Audrey, please update the council with the council president's permission on the Tiffin Community Development Committees.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. President. So yes, I'm here to talk to you about the Tiffin Community Development Committee, or as we call it internally, the TCDC. So I'm very excited about this committee. There are, sometimes a group of people that when you get them in a room, they just give off, an exciting energy. And this group definitely does that. Back when we were actually able to be in a room together, at least. So this committee kicked off in February of this year. So we've been operating it since then. The main thing about this committee is that I really think it's the right group of people. David and I worked really hard to make sure that we were gathering the right people around this table. We wanted to make sure that it was as diverse and inclusive as possible and that all the right kind of areas were represented. So from the city, many of the committee members are here on this call. We have the mayor, Dale, we have Matt Watson, city engineer, Bryce Kuhn from Parks. We have Councilwoman Iana Tuno, and then the rest of the committee is made up of, we tried to make it, well represented from across the community in different areas. So we have nonprofit leaders, we have some private business leaders, people from social services sectors, and leadership from our local foundations. And again, just wanted to really make sure that it was an inclusive group of people and that all the right kind of, views were represented that need to be. And we hope to have it remain that way as the committee moves on and the terms kind of cycle out. And so I wanted to say that I'm really grateful for the work that this committee is doing. This is not one of those committees where the members can just sit back and not participate. We're asking them to, to participate, to be analytical, to really think creatively and engage. And they have been doing that for us. We've met all through COVID. And they are really showing up for us. And I really appreciate the work that they've done with David and I so far. And so again, there's really a lot of weight to these decisions. As David said, this committee is, working on shaping community development for the city. So this committee is going to help guide community development for you all and guide the work that David and I do on this. And, their role is kind of in the process. So the what is the comp plan, the comprehensive plan that David presented on last week. The who is this committee is going to guide the recommendations that we make to you all as the city and guide our work. And the what, or the how is the process that David is about to describe to you. So this committee is a really important piece of the puzzle, and I'm very excited to have the opportunity to facilitate the committee through the process that David is going to describe. I'm happy to answer questions about the committee at the end after David goes ahead and explains the process.
Okay, thank you very much, Audrey. So I'm going to dive into the process again. It's very similar to what we talked about with respect to the Policy Development Committee. Everything that we're going to do through this process that we're going to do internally are to provide a list of recommendations, a list of prioritization of the community. In terms of community development block grant or what projects the council and or the administration want to fund, it takes no authority away. We're just trying to give you more information so that you can make better decisions and identify more projects and get more grant money. So that's really the intent of what we're trying to do with the Tiffin Community Development Committee, and specifically with the PIP, Project Identification and Prioritization Process. Try to say that 3 times fast. And that's why we're doing it. So it was approved by the Tiffin Community Development Committee on July 22nd. I think Audrey's doing an amazing job getting up to speed, not only with a really complex program, but also with the committee. So let me give a little bit of historical context on why we're doing this. So previous to 2015, you didn't need to have a formal plan, a city like Tiffin, a community, to get community development block grant funds. You didn't need a formal process. And beginning in that year, they said, okay, you need to have something called a community development implementation strategy, which was a formal list of prioritized projects and your way that you were going to engage the community. So as part of our plan in 2016, we created the first Tiffin Community Development Committee. We held meetings in each of the wards. We solicited public feedback on projects. We didn't get that many, resident engagement. The council showed up. We had good council engagement. And so we thought we'd take a little bit of a different tack in 2018. And so we were using CT consultants at the time. And so they worked directly with the administration and city council to identify and prioritize projects. And each council person kind of went to their ward. I remember Councilwoman Ian Antuno saying, hey, I got someone in my ward that has a project. Would like to see Riverview Park improved. And so that ended up becoming the project, thanks to the hard work of Matt Watson and Bryce Kuhn. Did a lot of behind the scenes work and designing that and engineering internally, which saves a lot of money. And they deserve a lot of credit for doing a lot of design on a lot of things, which saves the city and the taxpayers money. That being said, those project improvements have been completed. It was a great project, and it directly emanated from a resident. So, which was good, but we've been seeking, and we're like, okay, so this isn't the answer either. We want to have a more engaged process, a better process. So similar to the last thing, we're trying to improve what we're doing. So in 2019, we knew none of the existing staff were going to have the opportunity to do it. So we created a new position and got some additional funding, and we're able to hire the very talented Audrey Flood, who has a deep commitment to the community, from the community, and also went to Ohio State and came back, was working for the Tiffin Community Foundation as a master's in public administration, so very dedicated to the community. And once she began in June, she started working to get up to speed on everything that was going on, and we launched the Tiffin Community Development Committee at the beginning of this year. So once it was reconstituted and relaunched, the idea was, let's develop this a process to develop a prioritized list of projects and identify projects, and do it in a better way. So we did what we did with the PDC. We went to a best model, a best practice. And one that I was very familiar with was taking place in the Dayton region, where they have Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is the headquarters of the Air Force. And they've been very good at going after federal money for a long, long time. And so what they do is they've had for a couple of decades something they call the Priority Development Advocacy Process. And so they've been able to get stakeholders around the table, develop a list of projects, and prioritize those. And so what we did is we took that base model and we shared it with the committee. We got feedback, we adapted it, we localized it for the city of Tiffin specifically. And our intention is it's not just, although it does serve the purpose of checking the box for CDBG and coming up with a great process for CDBG, or a better process, but it also is going to position us to go after other grant funds, because we as the community have gone through this process of identifying these with a lot of public input, et cetera. So we're pretty darn excited about it. So this process, the PIP process, looks like this. It has 10 key elements, and that's in a document that I sent to the mayor that I believe was also sent to you. The first is, kind of foundational ideas that this is going to establish a list, a prioritized list of projects for the city of Tiffin. They're going to be categorized in 1 of 3 categories: as priority projects, which means one of two. It means both they are ready for funding, like they've been designed, they know what they need, and they're going to have a big impact. Recommended projects, where they meet community needs, maybe not as big an impact, but they're also ready for funding. And reviewed projects, which either they don't quite meet the needs yet, or they're not quite ready for funding yet. So kind of, categorizes these. And then once they're categorized, they go to review panels, which kind of looks at a variety of criteria to do that categorization, do that classification. Those review panels submit it back after they look at the evaluation criteria. And let me tell you what those evaluation criteria are. They're going to look at what's the economic and community development benefit, what's the cost effectiveness of the project, what's the maturity, is it ready, does it have a budget, how feasible is it. One of the things that came through the committee is it's sustainable, because we know you can have things like, for example, e-screen, but there's an ongoing commitment to maintain it. So what's the sustainability, and where's the funding for that? And what's that going to look like? What's the impact? What's going to mean to the residents? What's it going to mean to the community? And lastly, but not least, what's the community support for the project? So those are going to be the kind of the evaluation for determining what's the impact and is it ready? And then it's going to, all that's going to be gathered. And then the projects are going to be they're going to be evaluated we're going to put out for the public to take a look at. Here's what the descriptions of the project are, solicit public input, and each one is going to have a project sponsor. It's then going to go to the panels to make those classifications, and they're going to have the community input, looks at community support, et cetera, and that feedback. And we're going to have a schedule where once the overall committee is going to look at the review panels, and it's going to then come up with that finalized list. So in a nutshell, the schedule is we would begin in September, approximately every year, asking for projects. We would put it online. People can submit the information online form. Of course, if they want to do it written, we could provide them a written form to do that, but everything's going to be kind of online. Middle of November, the time for submitting project closes, and all the project information goes online. And then on December 1, that public comment period closes. And in Dayton, they found that, with that public, the newspapers like to report on it. It gets a lot of support for those projects and awareness of those projects that they didn't have before. December 1, again, it goes to the panels. The panels meet in January, categorize each project as a priority, recommended, or reviewed. And then in February, the full Tiffin Community Development Committee meets, approves the panel recommendations. In mid-February, that list is then presented to all stakeholders, such as the administration, city council, state legislators. It takes nobody's authority away. It's just saying, hey, here's a prioritized list. We understand that there may be certain funding available for certain projects, or certain, state and local and federal legislators may have other priorities, but it is very helpful when applying for grants, and also in giving you information on kind of, here's the list. And in state capital budget years when there is funding available, it's particularly helpful, and the list will be specifically numerically prioritized as well every other year. So that's the intent. And today is the first time we're kind of talking about it. I want to give Audrey the floor to talk a little bit, just like 2 minutes, on how we're intending to begin to roll this out in terms of beginning to communicate what the intention is.
Yeah, thank you, David. So, like you said, this goes live September 1st to start gathering the project list through November then. So we're going to announce this to the public in various ways. We want this whole process to be transparent, accessible, easy, simple for the public to get engaged in. So we're going to announce it to the public through various methods: newspapers, social media, radio, flyers, all the different methods that are out there. We're going to promote it. We're going to speak about it at different community groups and that kind of thing. We're going to ask the members of the Tiffin Community Development Committee to share about it to their, groups and boards and that kind of thing. So we're really getting the word out there broadly to the public about it. We want this to, again, be an open and transparent and fully community engaged process. And then we're also going to make sure that everyone at the city is on board with this. So we're going to send out, clear documentation and information on this to all the city officials and staff, and anyone who wants more clarification or wants to hear more about it. David and I are available to meet or to ask questions about it at any time. We want to make sure everyone feels very comfortable with this since it's a brand new process moving forward. We're also going to reach out to any people that are existing sort of project sponsors or people or organizations that already have a project that are, might be something that's already in the works or whatever. We're going to make sure that they're engaged and that they know how to get engaged in this process as well. We are going to, like David said, make sure that this is easily accessible on the web. There'll be a site where all this information is available. Projects can be submitted on there. Again, everything very clearly listed. And I just want to close with, David said that the whole goal of this is to provide you with the best recommendations to submit for grants and to, know what projects to pursue as far as community type projects, not economic, but community. And so the goal of this whole thing is, the process David just described, the committee, and especially all of this communication we're talking about, is to gather as many different projects as possible from the community and to make sure that those, most valuable, impactful, meaningful, community supported projects are the ones that are prioritized to move forward with, however we're able to do that. And so the thing I want to leave you with in order to do that, what we're asking you is to dream big. So not only all of you at the city, the elected, the staff, and the community as a whole, we really want you to dream big on this. So keep the comprehensive plan in mind that we've all been talking a lot about. Use that as kind of your guide, and then dream big, get those projects out there, and we will, figure out how to get to those goals.
So one thing I forgot to mention is that there are 3 kinds of projects or 3 panels that we're going to have in this process. One is for quality of life projects, one is for education and training projects, and one is for kind of hospitals, healthcare, and human services. So those are the different categories that we're going to have, and each of those is going to have its own panel. Jody Reinbolt and Andrew are going to co-chair the quality of life panel. Kathy Oliver is going to chair the hospitals, healthcare, and human services panel, and Kim Radisson is going to chair the education and training panel. If anybody's interested in being on part of one of those panels, let Audrey know. Be happy to incorporate you in. So with that, any questions for me or Audrey? Happy to answer them, or feedback, comments.
Okay, well, it looks like they're.
Sorry about that. Thanks, David. Thanks, Audrey. I apologize. Too many things to think about. Mayor?
Yes. We appreciate everyone's time this evening. I know there was a lot of information between the report that I gave and our wastewater pollution control center upgrades and David and Audrey, but we're just showing you that we obviously are keeping just as busy during the pandemic as we were before. I think David would probably agree with me here. I think we may be even busier than ever now that we're able to meet on Zoom and save time driving to and from meetings. So we've been quite busy lately, but lots of good things, lots of good plans coming together, and we're going to continue to move this community forward. So thank you, David. Thank you, Audrey. Mr. President, that concludes my report this evening.
Okay. We're going to need to pass this along to a committee. and get feedback? Mayor?
Yeah, however you would like to handle it, Mr. President, since we are not formally passing legislation, it's up to you. If this is just something that council kind of agrees with and wants us to keep on file for the next transformative project, or if council wants to discuss this more, but we are not asking for any kind of legislation, because at the end of the day, the mayor and council have the final authority on this, regardless of some committee, and we're not asking council to concede its authority.
Okay. Very good. Then we'll leave it as is. Is that the end of your report, Mayor?
Yes, it is, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions for the mayor? Okay, seeing none, we'll move ahead. Clerk of Council, Ann Forrest.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to report that the money has been received for the fees for the Alley Vacation Petition number 103 under Ordinance 20-80, and we can proceed with the third reading.
Thank you. Any questions for the clerk? Director of Finance, Kathy Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to report to you for the financial figures for the month of July 2020. Total receipts for the month were $5,411,560.83. Total expenses for the month were $5,193,675.03. The general fund unencumbered balance is $2,074,527.69. Income tax receipts for July 2020 were $1,029,293.58. When you compare that to July of 2019, we were actually up $288,012.43 for the month of July. Overall, year to date, as of the end of July, we were down 4%. The portion of the income tax receipts that was transferred into Fund 215 for public streets for July was $127,011.41. The unexpended balance for all funds is $25,675,067.88, which is the same as the bank balances for the time period. And that concludes my report.
Does anyone have any questions for the finance director? Councilman Gillig?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to accept the finance director's report and bank reconciliation as presented. You guys may have seen that Kathy sent this to us via email on August 5th.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilman Schaaf?
I'd like to second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept the report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Director of Law, Brent T. Howard.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. We're now under written communications.
We have a notice from the Ohio Department of Liquor Control for a permit transfer from Niles Foods LLC, doing business as Al's Convenience Store, 614 West Market Street, to be transferred to Cat Petroleum Incorporated, also doing business as Al's Convenience Store.
Thank you. This matter will be sent to the Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers Committee. Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Street, Sidewalk, Sewer Committee, we'd authorize the clerk to sign and return the liquor transfer request back to the state of Ohio.
Thank you. Any more written communications?
That concludes the written communications.
Thank you. We're now under oral communications. Anyone from the attending public who would like to address council can raise their hand, be identified by Kathy Moore, and direct your comments to the council president. We have a 5-minute time limit. Kathy, is there anyone that,
No one is requested to comment.
no one? Okay. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I spoke at the committee of the whole meeting. Joe Schneider from 129 Douglas Street was hoping to speak to city council tonight. I know it's 8:25. He may not be available, but I would like to give him another 40 seconds to respond. I would hate to see him get cut off.
All right, we can grant some extra time here.
Rich?
Mayor?
I did see Joe was on here at the, for about the first half an hour of our call here, and then he left. I don't know if he had internet issues or he had to go to work or another meeting, but he has not been on the list now for probably the last half hour to 45 minutes of the call. So I'm not sure why he dropped off. I can't speak to that.
Okay.
David Zach made him tap out.
Well, you know, the other thing, if he wants to address this, we can contact him and let him know that the next meeting that he's certainly welcome to address us. Councilman Jones, do you have anything else? Okay. All right. We are now under motions. Are there any motions? Seeing none, we're under resolutions.
Resolution number 20-29, introduced by Ty Schuff. Resolution accepting, approving, and endorsing the Seneca County Multi-Jurisdictional Comprehensive Plan.
This is the first reading of Resolution 20-29. We're now under, is that all the resolutions?
No, there's another one that was sent out with an agenda change memo.
Oh, okay,
this
thank
afternoon.
you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Resolution number 20-30, introduced by Steve Leopard. Resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission OPWC State Capital Improvement Program to execute contracts as required and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of Resolution 20-30.
Ordinance number 20-80, introduced by Steve Leopard. Ordinance responding to petition number 103, vacating an alley in First Highland Edition running south from First Avenue in the 2nd Ward of the city of Tiffin, Ohio.
This is the third reading of Ordinance 20-80. Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask for passage of ordinance number 20-80.
We have a motion for passage of Ordinance 20-80. Is there a second? Councilman Schuff.
I'd like to second, Mr. President.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilman Schuff.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm glad that our committee got to go down there and see this firsthand in person. I think it'll improve the property. It was a landowner that was taking down a blighted spot there on their property, and I think this will improve that neighborhood or make it look better here. So
Good. Anyone else? The clerk will call the vote, please.
Councilman Killig.
Yes.
Yanatuno.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Leopard.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Duff.
yes.
Boyle.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-80 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 20-82, introduced by Daniel Perry. Ordinance amending the requirements for applicants to become the city's chief of police.
This is the third reading of Ordinance 20-82. Councilman Perry.
Yeah, I'd like to ask for passage of Ordinance 20-82.
Thank you. We have a motion to pass Ordinance 20-82. Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I'll second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the vote on the passage of ordinance 20-82.
Councilman Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Boyle.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-82 passes with a vote of 7-0.
That concludes the ordinances, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Councilman Schuff.
Yeah, I just had a question here, maybe two questions here for the administration. And maybe this was a press release that came out that maybe I had missed or something that was in the paper that I oversaw. But what's going on out there off of between like Ellis Street and the fairgrounds? I seen where they just cleared a big plot of land there back behind the trailer park. Some trees were down and there was a lot of land cleared off back there. But does anybody know what's going on back there? Because I missed it.
Mayor?
Yes, we are working with a developer on that property. However, they are not ready for the announcement to go out yet for what they're doing. We hope to have that in the very near future.
Are you allowed to say whether it's residential or commercial?
It is a residential development.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Well,
You've
if
been
you go
quiet
to,
tonight.
I know, if you go to Seneca News Daily, you can actually find out your answer, Tyler. It was in there a couple days ago with
Thank
a
you.
map.
That is also correct. We've been asked to not announce it yet, so if other news entities find out, that's fine. But Dawn is correct.
Anyone else? I'd like to commend Councilman Perry tonight for his double duty. Did a good job. Augie hung in there with you.
Got my butt kicked. It was terrible.
That's what dads are for. Okay, is there anyone else? Anything else? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I would like to thank Councilman Schuff for turning off his fan. I thought I was going to get a migraine. With the
My
flickering light.
apologies, Dawn.
It was really flickering.
I tried to get the light behind my head, not in front.
Had to tease you about that.
Anyone else? Well, thank you all, and God bless you, and we stand adjourned.